Welcome to Perfectionism as a Trauma Response Healing for Sensitive Black Women. So, if you've ever felt like you've had to be everything for everyone, always performing, always striving, this conversation today is for you. So, welcome if you are joining live. Please let us know in the chat so we can say hello to you. If you're watching on the replay, please let us know in the comments if anything resonates so we can learn from each other in this really community of knowledge sharing and growth. I've learned so much from the comments that you all have shared. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who attended the Healing Circle that I hosted on Sunday, which was a safe place to feel healing for sensitive Black women. So I do hope to host another Healing Circle in the future because that one was so healing for me. And everyone who attended, just the feedback that I received, it really made a difference during these times of chaos. So I appreciate you all for being there, those who could attend. And yes, let's get into the conversation today. I also want to announce that I am hosting, or I guess facilitating, a healing program called Silence Your Inner Critic, which is now open for registration. If you would like to join us, there is a standard pricing option as well as pay what you can, because I do not want costs to be a barrier. I know during these times with the state of the economy, seeking out healing resources, assistance can feel just undoable, right? If you don't have the budget for it. And so I never want cost to be a barrier for us to receive healing. So please join us. We start Sunday, July 6th at, I did have the time here, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and we'll meet for 4 weeks every Sunday at that same time. And you'll receive things like we shared in the Healing Circle, right? Prompts for reflection, meditations. And so please learn more. It's scrolling here on the screen as well, what I'll also put in the chat. If you would like to join us starting Sunday, July 6th, please register. We would love to see you there. Again, it's called Silence Your Inner Critic. So this is healing for sensitive Black women ready to, first of all, like reclaim our voices, heal from voices we may have internalized from other people who have been highly critical of us throughout our lives, come back into our power and our authenticity. And so just demonstrated by the healing that I received and the people who attended received during the healing circle that I hosted. It's powerful when we come together as sensitive people who feel deeply to be able to just have a safe space in the midst of everything happening in the world. So yes, Kiana, hello, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Please subscribe to Kiana's channel, Level Up Single Mom. Yes, so lovely to see you here. Zane, welcome. Thank you for joining. Okay, y'all. Yeah, so today we're going to unpack how perfectionism can show up as a trauma response. So, especially for sensitive Black women navigating survival in a world that too often demands our labor at the cost of our well being. So, today, this is a space of softness, of truth, and of reclamation where we can really honor what's beneath the need to be perfect and begin to heal. Raw Homemade, welcome. Thank you for joining. Welcome, everyone who's joining. Right? So, what's beneath the surface? So, many times it will present as perfectionism, but what messages have you internalized? What environments have you been in that have demanded perfection, right? Which is an illusion. It's someone else's standards that they have set that we are taught that we now have to adhere to, that we now have to live up to. And so, even recognizing that it is an illusion, right? Because not everyone is held to the standard that we're told that we have to adhere to in order to do anything. And so it's really a message at work, right? Of telling us that we are not good enough as we are. And so it's unpacking the deeper layers to this as a form of healing. Yes. Thank you for sharing this, recovering perfectionist. Yes, a lot of us are, me included. Yes. So still in the process of unlearning the need to be perfect, recognizing how just even that messaging is harmful, right? That there's a standard that we have to continuously strive for, to seek, right? That the people who set these standards cannot even live up to them, right? Not even close. Mediocrity, right, is often the the thing that they actually uphold, but they're telling us that we have to seek perfection, their approval, their permission. And so how does that keep us stuck and feeling small and feeling like we're unworthy? All of these things that kind of just simmer, right? And create these deeper wounds. So we're going to unpack that today. So yes, perfectionism is not a personality trait, right? It's a trauma response, because perfectionism is learned. It is a learned behavior. Again, when we are in environments, when we are in family systems that demand us to be perfect, to live up to these inhuman standards, we start to internalize that messaging and repeat it back to ourselves, right? And it becomes this never ending loop of us telling ourselves, right, you're not doing it right. Other people's messages that we have internalized over time. So it's beginning to separate that from your true identity, who you are, right? Realizing that who you are at your core is enough without you having to perform to meet someone else's standards that they set, right? It's questioning, why is their standard the authority? And really coming back into who you were before you begin to internalize this messaging, right? And allowing yourself the space to be human. So we're going to talk about how it forms, what it cost us, and then how we begin to release this messaging with compassion. Again, if you are interested in silencing your inner critic, which a lot of us are on the journey to do, please join us for the group healing program that starts Sunday, July 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We will meet every Sunday during July to heal, right? So I'll be facilitating these sessions, also be providing prompts for reflection, meditations, which I'm excited about, because hearing affirmations and meditations on repeat has been so pivotal to my healing. And so I'm excited to be able to share that with those of you who are on a similar journey of healing. And so it's scrolling here on the screen too, and I'll link it here in the chat. Standard pricing and pay what you can option if you would like to join us, starting Sunday, July 6th, for Silence Your Inner Critic. Something I wish that I had probably, years ago, that would have really helped me on this journey of understanding what is my authentic voice outside of the messages that I have internalized, right? So yes, Atia, welcome. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining. Let's get to these comments. Drell's Healing Garden Journey. Hello, yes. Good to see you too. Yes, thank you for joining. Zane says, yes, the Black community tells us women, you must be excellent. You cannot be mediocre. You must be mind readers and get it right the first time. Absolutely. Yeah. So the pressure, right? And part of healing is revisiting those times, the messages that you received, who told them to you, right? Naming them to yourself. Who told you this message? That you had to be perfect, that you had to be excellent to deserve to be here? Because it really is that deep sometimes. And whose standard are we seeking? And for what aim? And is that aim ever achieved? Or are we destroying ourselves essentially in the process, trying to achieve approval, and they keep moving the stick, right? They keep raising the bar, moving the stick. And so we're constantly like chasing someone else's approval, which is exhausting, which is the point of it. It's intentionally exhausting to harvest often our mental energy, things that we could be using to put towards other things, but now we're seeking their approval, their stamp. And so beginning to unlearn this, to come back into our authenticity, is so important, especially, as I said, during these times where we're seeing chaos happen left and right. Just the pressure of conformity, I feel like, has really escalated this year. And just being able to hold on to your uniqueness, right? Your individuality, who you came here to be, without this pressure to constantly seek someone else's approval. That is exhausting. Choose better even though you chose the best that was presented under the circumstances. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yep. Yep. So you can only make the decision with the information that you have at the time. And then when you gain new information, you make a different decision. That's the process of change, of life, right? Of pivoting. Um, and so if you are internally kind of beating yourself up for making a decision where you did not have the information at the time, could it be time to now release that? I made the decision, right, with the information that I had at the time, and release the self blame, release the shame that may be surrounding that. And just know, like, now that I have more information, I can make a different decision going forward. Yeah. You should have known. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So these things that we repeat to ourselves internally, which can lead to a spiral, anxiety, depression, right? Even worse, when we are in these spirals and knowing that you can literally stop it, have an awareness of what's happening. Is this a message that you may have internalized from someone else? And you have the power to press stop on that message. It doesn't have to just keep going. Now that you've recognized that you've internalized it, separating your authentic self, your true identity from what someone else projected onto you can be really powerful and healing. Oh, thank you. Thank you for this. Yes, that's a huge need. Silence your inner critic. Inner critic manifests into outer ones. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Inner critics, yes, manifest into outer ones. Yep. Yeah, because often when we are critical of ourselves internally, right, as Kiana said, that often like manifests into us being highly critical of other people around us. And so, could the root be you, right, having these messages on repeat that you have internalized from someone else? It's a cycle. We internalize messages from someone else who probably receive the same messages, and then we harm other people, right, with the messages of being highly critical. And the cycle continues. And so, those of us who are cycle breakers, disrupting generational trauma, how can we stop that cycle and realize that it does not have to continue into future generations? It can stop with you, that you have the power to do that. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much. Welcome. Welcome. Always good to see you here. Thank you for becoming a member, Butterfly Effect. Yes, sometimes the messaging is unspoken and based on affirming or disaffirming treatment. Exhausting. Yes, 100%. Yes. Let's see, it says meditation and affirmations are what have helped me overcome the need to be perfect. Also, realizing it's extremely tiring to try and live up to someone else's standards. It is. It's exhausting. Yep. Because again, those standards often change, right? With the blow of the wind, they're going to change again. And so we're chasing. We're constantly chasing. And healing really looks like going internally, often in staying rooted in who you are, right? And what you know to be true, in the fact that you are worthy, that you came here worthy. Nothing will ever change that. And just staying rooted while we see. And once you're able to do that over a process of time, you're able to see much more clearly the messaging that's surrounding us, that's telling us to conform, that's telling us to contort ourselves, that's telling us to take off parts of ourselves, to maintain the status quo, to maintain the systems as they are, to make us feel inferior over and over and over again. Right? And something I'll be talking more about, as I just mentioned, the cycle, the generational trauma that many of us are disrupting. Right? It will not continue into a future generation. Me repeating these things, this messaging, this loop that has been embedded, I'm actually taking the steps to stop that, which is part of the reason I created, right, Silence Your Inner Critic. If you're able to identify the messages, the voices that you have taken on from other people who may have not been able to give themselves the freedom to, I don't want to say fail, but to be human. And they projected that onto you. And so now you've internalized that message and you're saying it back to yourself over and over again. If you can go within and recognize that and stop that reel, you're taking the power to not repeat that right outside of yourself. You've stopped that within yourself, and so it also stops externally. And so just recognizing that, right, turning within. Yes, thank you so much for commenting. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, let me get my banners up. So where perfectionism comes from, right? So it's important to recognize that you were not born trying to be perfect. You were not born trying to be perfect. Perfectionism is something that we learned to survive. It is a behavior of survival. It is a learned behavior, which means it can be unlearned. Any learned behavior can be unlearned. And there's never a point where it's too late for this behavior. You just have to continue doing it. If it's harming you, if it's harming other people around you, there is no such thing as it being too late to unlearn a behavior that is harming you, that is disrupting your well-being, right? There's never a point where it's too late. As long as you're living, you can unlearn, just as you can learn. Yes. So we learned if I'm perfect, right? Meaning if I meet their standards, maybe they won't criticize me. If I overperform, maybe I'll finally be safe, accepted, or seen. If I don't make any mistakes, maybe I won't be punished or overlooked. Okay, these messages can also be rooted in childhood trauma. So if you experience this and it was real, so part of unlearning self-gaslighting is understanding the very real roots of where these thoughts started. You're not imagining them, you're not making them up. You did not develop this behavior pattern out of nowhere. It actually stems from something that's very real that occurred likely early on. So if you can trace that back to when it first started, you can uproot that from your being, right? And make space for something that feels more authentic and true to who you are. Yes. I love this. I'm currently on a journey of unlearning. Yes. Perfectionism. Yes. Me too. Mm-hmm. That part. Thank you for sharing, Zane. They don't even live up to their standards. And if they do, good for them. That doesn't work for me on today. Yes. That's it. That's so important. They don't even live up to their standards. We see it glaring. Glaring in this very moment. Right? But they tell us that these are the standards that we have to live up to. And it's just beginning to question, right? Another video idea I had is like for Black girls who ask questions, because I know that has been a huge opening for people to come in and harm me throughout my life because I ask questions. Because I've always been inquisitive, right? I've always been able to see things that are off. And in the society in particular, that is viewed as a threat. Right? Because how dare you question the standards that I've set, the authority that I've assumed. And so if you are someone who asks questions, know that that is a sacred gift to be able to do in a society that constantly like punishes us for that, right? So keep asking questions, please. Yep. Yes. Scrolling through the comments. Yes. Nowadays, they move the goalposts with collapsing DEI, saying that degrees no longer matter, etc. It was great advice until they changed the rules. That's it. Mm-hmm. because the rules constantly change, right? So there's never a point of time where the rules are permanent. And this is just bringing up student debt. As I was just reading an article that the reports are being sent to credit score reporting agencies if you're not able to pay your student debt, which I've talked about before, right? But they sold us a package of this is the pathway that you have to be on to be worthy, to have social acceptance. And now the blame is being placed on us for the messaging that they gave us, for the rules that they laid out that did not lead us to the path that was promised to us. So yes, the rules change constantly. Right? And it's on purpose, it's intentional, because it's often a display of power. So if you are in charge of setting the rules, that means you can change the rules anytime you want. Right? And the rules don't apply to you. They apply to the people that you've, right, claimed are inferior, that have to view you as the ultimate authority. So it is deep. Right? So we have often been judged harshly, praised for over-functioning, rewarded externally, and then punished for slowing down when our bodies refuse to go any farther. So perfectionism became the armor, right? Even as I think back through my experiences in school, perfectionism was often the armor, right? Those of us who have experienced bullying, many of us will go deep into studies, right? Academics, grades, these external things of validation and reward, and it becomes a never-ending cycle. So the truth is, right, armor may have protected you in those situations, but it may have also disconnected you from yourself, from your authenticity, from how you naturally show up in the world. It may have numbed you. It may have silenced your creativity. It may have kept you in a constant loop of not enoughness, of feeling like you can never be enough. Right? And it's important to recognize that we are living in systems that were not built for us to survive, let alone thrive. And so if you're experiencing this of unlearning perfectionism, of realizing how it's showed up in your life, you're not alone. So many of us are. Yes, total perfectionist performance dissociation. So dissociating from your true, authentic self to perform. And shout out to Rushni Cope. Her channel is Glamazini on YouTube. She talks a lot about this, right? The pressure to perform, to put up an image, and then you become disconnected from who you are authentically. And so then you have to heal from all those years of dissociating, of separating yourself to survive these really harsh, toxic, traumatic environments that were never built for us. Yes. Yes. Add inquisitive, introverted, sensitive Black women. Yes. Yes. Inquisitive, introverted, sensitive Black women. Yes. Yeah. Because so often we're able to see right through. Right through all the BS. Oh, thank you for sharing this and welcome. Yes. Rebecca says perfectionism is something that has held me back. Currently working on self-sustaining through self-care practices and focusing on efficiency and preparation. Yes, uni hit me hard second semester. Woo. I appreciate you sharing this. College. Woo. for those of us who are in the US, but yes, university. Mm, so many things, so many avenues to go in college. College really was the place where these behaviors became solidified, because the pressure is to stay up. Is there sleep? Is there room for sleep in college? Not often, right? The pressure is to stay up, to study, to do all nighters, to write 20 pages of BS, right? It's just this constant pressure to perform, to conform, to meet other people's standards. And it's the fear, right, that will sold to so many of us, especially as millennials. If you don't go to college, right, you might as well, like, you're not, all these messages of self-worth, um, it's deep. Deep programming happened in college. Yes. So I appreciate you sharing this. And I hope to be talking more about this, especially as I'm removed now at this point. Has it been almost? It has. It's been almost 10 years since I graduated with my undergraduate degree, but those times were difficult. And it was sold to us as this is the dream, right? These are the best years of your life. And that was not the case for me. And really giving myself space to feel, to reflect, to connect the dots between college and the traumatic work environment I was in, right? The threads are just right on through. And where was that message given to me? That I have to overwork myself, that I have to conform, that I have to pretend to receive external validation, to get the grade, to get the GPA, so then you can get into the next school or the job. It's just a never-ending cycle that, again, so many of us are disrupting because it's unsustainable, right? And the things that they promised us on the other side of that didn't even show up. So it's like, what is this for? Yes, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think we have been trained to exist in this nation, whereas we should have been trained to exist as, yes, free human global citizen wherever we are, celebrated and safe. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. We have been trained to exist in this nation. Yeah. And I think given the history of the US in particular, but globally, being forced into these roles of subservience to serve the needs of other people, that is the system of colonialism, which has impacted the entire globe. And it appears in so many different environments that we're in. It appears within ourselves because we've internalized this messaging. Yes. Okay, let's get into how perfectionism shows up. So, perfectionism isn't just about high standards, it can truly be a form of fear. So, here is where it may show up for us as sensitive and or introverted Black women. So, you may avoid starting things unless you know they'll be flawless, which again is an illusion. Right? Because it's always someone's perception. Someone's always going to have something to say. You could have tweaked this, you could have made this better. And so there's never a point where it's can ever be perfect or flawless. These things are illusions to keep us, again, chasing someone else's approval, someone else's standards that they have set, and they've assumed authority, often without our consent. So you may criticize yourself over small mistakes, aka being a human being. Mistakes are just the human experience. Right? You may attach your worth to your output. You may burn out trying to prove that you're enough. burn yourself out, pushing your body past the point where it's saying enough, but you're saying go a little bit further. And I was just speaking to someone about this. For a lot of us, the point of realization and awakening comes when our bodies refuse to go any farther, like they break down physically, mentally. And so if you can be aware of what's happening before you get to that point, know that you do not have to get to that point in order to rest. The goal is to, before that even occurs, way before, to give yourself rest, to release the message of perfectionism. And it shouldn't take our bodies breaking down for us to be like, oh, I can't do this anymore like this, which has unfortunately been the case for so many of us. So you may feel deep shame when you fall short of others' expectations that were impossible to meet. Right? So something to consider is that perfectionism is often a fawning trauma response. So fawning is in one of the four main trauma responses. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so we have often learned to survive in environments where being quiet, agreeable, or impressive to other people felt safer than being our full, authentic, messy selves, right? That's part of being a human being. We learned that if I'm perfect, again, maybe I won't be punished. If I anticipate everyone else's needs, then maybe I'll be accepted. If I don't make waves, maybe I'll be safe in this environment. And healing begins when we say, I refuse to shrink or shapeshift to be loved. I refuse to perform peace because I already deserve it. And I do not have to be perfect. I can be a human being. Right. So if you would like to share, if you're live here in the chat, how this may have shown up, right, as a trauma response, as a fawning trauma response, which again is shrinking, is trying to be perfect, right, to meet the approval or the standards of someone in a position of power who's like looming over us, right, who is threatening to punish us if we don't do the thing. Right. And so a lot of us may shrink, may overwork, may again push our bodies past the point where they're telling us all the alerts are going off to stop. But it's such a fear-based emotion because it is a trauma response that we often turn to perfectionism to try to thwart the potential consequences that may be coming to us. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome. Yes. For years, perfectionism was the roadblock to starting and finishing projects. Now I just start and course correct along the way. Thank you for sharing this. Yes. And I'll say, like, especially as a freelancer. So I also have a community for Black women freelancers, current and aspiring, of us on an entrepreneurship journey. This is the thing that a lot of us are working through, feeling like everything has to be perfect before you start, right? Which is counter to the way that entrepreneurship works, right? Having a business works, because you literally have to release what you have out into the world and know that you'll receive the feedback. And just like you said, Debbie, like course correcting, iterating along the way. So recognizing, like, giving yourself that flexibility and room to experiment versus feeling like you have to have everything in a perfect plan before you launch, because that's how a lot of us become stuck. Because again, it's never going to be perfect, because perfection is an illusion, and you just gather more information and data along the way and iterate, right? Life is an iterative process. It's not this rigid thing that we have been taught it is, right? Unlearning that messaging can be helpful as well. This resonates. Yes, there was so much I missed out on because I thought I had to be perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah. Yep. So I think that's like a perfect question to pose. Like, what may you be missing out on, as Atia said, right? Because you feel like you have to be perfect at it. Where could your life be more rich, more fun? Where could you invite in more exploration? But you're cutting yourself off from that because you've received the message that you have to be perfect, meeting someone else's standards instead of giving yourself that room to experiment. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Black women are human. Yes. We're either mules or super women. Yep. Said tongue in cheek with sarcasm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. Dehumanizing. Dehumanizing where other people, other groups get the message, play all you want, right? Experiment, try it out. But because we are socialized to be the ones to often uphold their lives, serve, like be in service, there is no room for us to be fully like an expression, like a full expression of being human. And that's why we have to take it back ourselves because it's never going to be given. It's never going to be given, but you have to take that and carve out that space for yourself. Within these environments, becoming your own safe place, something else we'll be focusing on as a topic in Silence Your Inner Critic. So, again, if you are interested in silencing your inner critic and coming back to your true, authentic voice, I'm launching a 4-week healing program for sensitive and or introverted Black women called Silence Your Inner Critic. Reclaim your authentic voice, right? Unlearn negative self-talk, get to the root of where it started so that you can uproot it. Starting Sunday, July 6th, 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll be meeting every Sunday in July at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And there will also be reflection prompts and weekly meditations for us to really root into the fact that we are enough, right? And unlearn these really negative messages that we've been taught, as Zane said, that are often dehumanizing. That tell us that we don't get to make mistakes, aka be human. That we have to serve other people, and that's our purpose on earth. Right? So many of us are rejecting that flat out, like, absolutely not. No. Because you don't get, right, the messaging we see the people in power. You don't get to have the messaging that you can just do what you want. And doing what you want means impacting other people's lives, destroying them. That's what brings you joy. And so we have to reject so many of the things that we have been taught and unlearn and shed, right? To really come back into our true, authentic selves, especially during this time. Thank you so much. Yes, be your own messy self because the truth is you may not really be that messy. That's it. Thank you for that. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of the word that's coming to me is unfurl. So many of us have to be very rigid and just like this, right? Guarded in these environments that we're in day in and day out, family systems, even work environments, educational environments. Have you created a soft place for yourself to unfurl? If you know that you have to do that, guard yourself in this environment to get through, That's one thing, but have you created a safe place for yourself to unfurl after you get out of that environment? That may be a reflection question too. Yeah. Perfectionism is that fake brass ring we were taught to grab a hold of, but in the end, the promised reward never matches the work we put in. That's it. Yep. That's it. So please constantly chase, right? This is the message we receive. Chase. As you said, this brass ring, you'll be rewarded with this after the end of your sacrifice. And we get to that point, and where's the ring, right? It's not there. But our bodies have been broken down. We've been impacted mentally, which was their goal the entire time, right? So none of this is just happen chance, right? It's intentional. It's very intentional. Yeah. Hey, welcome. Thank you for joining Soul Inspired. Hi, everyone. People have been very critical of me throughout life. And at one point, being a sensitive soul, I turned it inwards. Thank you for sharing this. Yes. And so many of us have. Yeah, that resonates. Yeah. Those of us who are sensitive, who are highly receptive, right? A lot of us have senses that are highly attuned to our environments, the people that we're around, and just recognizing that and why I may have been susceptible to harmful messages at a deeper level than other people who have been able to just be like, oh, I don't care about that. Right? That's never been me. I take things very to the heart often. And so part of healing and having to protect yourself in this world, in the society, is creating that filter for yourself and recognizing that everything does not have to come inward. Just because you feel it, you can also reject it, right? You can also put it back externally. So thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, and that anxiety leads to freezing. It does. Yep. Yep. Sometimes it's anxiety. Yeah, I feel like it builds up in my nervous system and I feel it up to months after the start. Yes. Yeah. Hmm. Yep. So nervous system healing has been a topic I've been seeing float around. Something I'll be talking more about. Recognizing how our nervous systems, especially as sensitive folks, are impacted by toxicity, by all the madness that we see happening, the chaos, that we're not just able to cut off how we feel about these things. And that is a gift, but it also, right, is difficult. It is difficult in this world to feel so deeply. And just putting in measures into place to be able to preserve yourself, your gifts that you have been chosen to inherit. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. We are in a world that has been impacted by things like colonialism, enslavement, right? And we still have our ancestral gifts, which means, right, that they're that powerful. If they've been able to be maintained throughout all of these things that we have encountered from generation to generation to generation, and yet we're still sensitive, feeling people. So that tells me how powerful those gifts are. And it is really a task of guarding them in this world. Yeah. Yes, yes. My body started giving signals of trauma due to workplace treatment. I'm recovering, but you are so right. We should not let it get to that point. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So if you're able to recognize the signals in your body that it's giving to you, because often we'll start out like a whisper, then it'll grow louder, right? Because our bodies are trying to tell us this environment is harmful. I need you to leave, right? And it's part of recognizing that. And thank you for sharing this because I also went through the exact same thing, and so many of us have. Being attuned to your body signals. As we talked about last week, This society likes to disconnect us from how we feel, from our bodies, and like really socializes us as robots, something that just like had come to me today, where we don't have bodily needs, right? We don't have the need to rest. That's what we're told. If we do, we're weak. If we need time to sit down, right? Sit still. And how this has been connected to oppression and subjugation throughout history. Once you're able to make those connections, you can so much more easily resist the constant messaging we receive. Yes. Yes. Thank y'all so much for commenting. Yes. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Yes. Yeah. Very intentional because many can capitalize from it. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. So let's get into affirmations to carry forward. So know that you do not have to be flawless to be worthy. You don't have to do everything right to deserve rest, joy, or compassion. Perfectionism is often a trauma response, as we talked about today, a fawning trauma response, trying to seek the approval of someone who is potentially harming you. But it does not have to be your identity at all. You can release it, right? And it is a process over time, as I am still very much in the process of releasing perfectionism, of realizing how it has showed up, and little by little letting it go, right? Anything that we enter into in life is going to be a process. And so it may feel difficult, impossible to start with. Know that that is normal. That is the process of change. A video that I have on my channel. Before we get to the step of actually changing our behavior, our brains go through a lot of things to even get to that point. So recognizing that even if it doesn't feel like it, I mean, even listening to something like this, like a video like this, something within you is awakening. Something within you knows that seeking perfectionism is not the way of your wellness, your well-being. And something probably wants to go a different direction, right? Which is a process over time. Know that you're allowed to lay perfectionism down. You're allowed to release it. You are also allowed to start before you feel ready. To release control without feeling guilty. To take a break without proving to other people that you've earned it. You're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to be a whole human being, not just a role you are performing. So know that your softness is sacred. Your rest is revolutionary, right? And healing can be messy, and it can be still so powerful and impactful. So again, if you missed it, I am starting a 4-week healing program starting Sunday, July 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, called Silence Your Inner Critic for Sensitive, Introverted Black Women Healing. We are shutting down these voices that have kept us feeling small, feeling unworthy, unlearning negative self-talk, and reclaiming our authentic voice, which again, as sensitive and our introverted people, right? A lot of people who don't have those traits can sometimes think that we don't even have a voice. But so many of us hold our power inside. And so being able to tap into that to guide your direction forward, even if other people can't recognize it, that's besides the point. Do you recognize your power? Do you recognize that you have a voice, a sacred voice that deserves to be heard? Oh, thank you for this question. It starts Sunday, July 6th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we'll be meeting every Sunday in July at that time. And between the time we meet, there will be weekly meditations as well as prompts for reflection. And so I would love for you to join us. There's standard pricing and also pay what you can, because I did not want price to be a barrier. But spots are limited for this first cohort of me introducing this healing program. Again, working through myself, the inner messages, right, that I have internalized throughout my life that have been highly critical. And as a sensitive, introverted Black woman, now releasing that and coming into my authenticity and being able to share my voice, right? Recognizing that sometimes that looks like journaling. Sometimes that doesn't look like doing it publicly. This has been a practice even of being on YouTube for me, right? Because before I could never even imagine doing this, but anything is a practice over time. And the more you're able to lean into who you are authentically versus performing a role for acceptance, for approval, things like this become a lot easier. And so I would love to help you if you are on a similar journey of recognizing the power of your voice, maybe the messages that you have internalized that have been highly critical. And just really, this is a powerful group healing setting, similar to the healing circle that I hosted this past Sunday. Thank you all for joining again. That was transformative for me, and I hope to host another one in the future. But just the power that is able to be tapped into when we are in a community where we feel safe to emote, when we've had to hold all these things in so closely, right, close to the chest to survive these environments, what can be possible when we are able to release, right? To have these live sessions every Sunday in July, starting July 6th, as well as the things to root us and anchor us throughout the week. So please enroll in Silence Your Inner Critic, again, starting Sunday, July 6th. We'll be meeting live for the first time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Zoom. And more information can be found at the link scrolling on the screen. And I also just put in the chat as well. It's also in the description section. Again, standard pricing and pay what you can are available for this first cohort, because I did not want price to be a barrier. So yes, with that said, I also want to mention, so I do offer individualized healing support if you are interested in that. And maybe group healing is not your thing. You can also book a session with me here, mpricemsw.card with 2 Rs.co, also in the description section. If you're interested in longer term healing support of working through traumatic experiences that you may have encountered, again, reclaiming your authenticity, stepping into your power fully, your brilliance, and recognizing that, no, you're not too sensitive. You're actually gifted. You're gifted, right? In this society that is built on lies, and we're able to recognize that so often, it views us as a threat. And that can really do a number on our self-esteem, on our self-worth, of us feeling like we have to shrink constantly, even when we leave that environment, because trauma just means like there's a print that has been made on us, right? We've been traumatized, so we're carrying it into another environment, into another place, maybe with ourselves if we have internalized it. But knowing that anything that has been learned, again, can be unlearned. There's power in knowing that something is a learned behavior and not just something that's part of who you are. Right? So are you a perfectionist, or is perfectionism a trauma response that you have adopted to survive in a highly traumatic environment that upheld standards that were impossible to reach? Leaning into that and reflecting on that may be helpful as well. So I want to thank y'all so much for joining me. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you are here or if you're watching on the replay, if anything resonated, please feel free to comment below. I love reading comments and reflecting on them myself. Please subscribe to my channel if this type of content resonates with you. Like this video if it resonates, so that it's shared with other Black women, sensitive Black women who are on a journey of unlearning perfectionism. And until next time, y'all, thank you so much for being here. Again, Silence Your Inner Critic starts Sunday, July 6th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. This is a 4-week healing program that I am facilitating to help us as sensitive, introverted Black women reclaim our power, unlearn negative self-talk, and really come into our authenticity once again, because it's never too late. It's never too late. So I appreciate y'all again for being here. Yes, you're gifted. Yes, you are. Absolutely. And gifted, add gifted, inquisitive, introverted, sensitive Black women. That's it. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, y'all. Bye. Thank you.